The views and opinions expressed on the show are those of the guests or hosts, and not necessarily those of the advertisers, networks, platforms, or stations. Warning that the content of the show may not be suitable for all audiences, and that viewer discretion is advised. The show does not intend to provide medical, legal, or financial advice, and viewers or listeners should consult with a professional before making any decisions based on the information presented.
Welcome back, everybody, to Paranormal Intelligence Agency Radio Live. I'm your host, Jack Carey, and we are broadcasting from 300 feet deep in an abandoned nuclear missile silo somewhere lost in the post-apocalyptic wastelands of the Dakota Territories. And I am joined, as always, by the paranormal crime-fighting duo, Daisy and the Sundance Kid, are riding security. Pardon me, I have a bit of a cough this week. Picked up a little bit of a bug over the week. It's been a rough week. I've been painting, producing some pretty pictures for people to check out at my art reception that will be featured for the month of March, but my reception is the first Friday night in March at the East Bank Art Gallery in Sioux Falls. So if you happen to be in that area, come by and check out some cool art, and they'll have wine and snacks and stuff like that for you. So this week, well, what's been going on this week that's been so crazy? There's been sort of a revelation of thought that I've had this week concerning cryptozoology and a reclassification of cryptozoology. And, you know, we got some new, fresh intel out of the Webbot. And, you know, it's some pretty dark stuff. It's exploring the dark theory is what it's called. The dark theory. There is no darker theory than this one. And it is, well, it's been rumored, more than rumored, that Jimmy Carter cry when he read it. So, pretty dark, mysterious stuff. Has to do with really sort of the philosophical implications of what we highly suspect to be true about the origins of humanity, and we're going to go over that this evening. And actually read some correspondence from Cliff High himself over at the Webbot. Cliff sent out a letter, and it's well worth conveying to the populace at large. So I think we'll cover that. But interestingly enough, I've had a few insights into the world of cryptozoology this week. And, you know, I touched upon a previous episode the idea that some of the animals that cryptozoologists are trying to, you know, to actually get evidence for and to, well, document in a scientific way for humanity's, you know, progress might not be from the Earth. They might be interdimensional in nature, or from the Type 3 civilization that maybe seeded the Earth after humanity was already here. So could it be that really what we need to be kind of eyeing is a reclassification of cryptozoology into two very different disciplines? One would be called cryptozoology and actually deal with the three rings of cryptozoology, which are all earth-based animals, right? And the other is a new classification. We would have a whole new type of investigator that specializes in exo-cryptozoology. or exozoology, however you would like to say it. But the idea that somebody has recognized the fact that creatures like Bigfoot, Dogman, and some others here on the Earth appear to either be chimera constructions from an alien species or something even weirder than that, something interdimensional in nature. So we're going to talk about that. Talk about a little bit more about the Terry McIlvaine horse mutilation case, really, that I mentioned last week. That's the only case in any animal mutilation anywhere in North America or the world, for that matter, where the perpetrator was actually photographed. As it approached the field, the McIlvaine's camera caught a final glimpse of what it was, and it was a very, very bright light source approaching the field. It had to be in using some sort of ultra light. It tripped the night vision cameras, and the way that it tripped them kind of showed that it was using some sort of night vision itself. And how might that actually fit into tonight's main topic, which is the dark theory, as Jimmy Carter put it. So, but anyway, some updates. It's been a crazy week again for, well, not for crypto so much, but for precious metals continue to, go up and down wildly, let's say. There's a lot of volatility in the precious metal markets, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that the precious metal markets have, no pun intended, acted as a magnet for traders from the cryptocurrency markets. So cryptocurrency is not really doing a lot right now. It's sort of languishing. If anything, it's just sort of slowly grinding downward. I'm looking for a bottom on Bitcoin somewhere around 57,000. Maybe give or take 1,000 or two, somewhere around in there. That would put Ethereum roughly around 1,600. And there you might, traders might find a tradable opportunity to the upside. Until then, it's kind of dead money to be sitting in the crypto markets at this time. And really, there's no reason to when you can trade things like silver and gold and platinum and palladium and copper and things like that are really moving well and are attracting a lot of money flow. So I'm sort of concentrating on that right now. It has not escaped my attention that there is a tokenized gold product out there that's offered by Coinbase. It's got a ticker symbol PAXGUSD. Guys, that is tokenized gold, like in its real form. So what is Bitcoin? Just asking the philosophical question, right? Bitcoin's supposed to be digital gold, and here you have tokenized real gold that's just as fluid as Bitcoin is. Boy, I don't know. That sounds like a terminal problem to me for Bitcoin, but maybe they'll figure out some way of utilizing it in a way that real tokenized gold can't be, because right now that's what it's considered to be, is just a store of value. Whereas, you have a product like Ethereum, which is more than just a cryptocurrency. It's a base platform that you can build it's a layer 2, so you can build all kinds of amazing apps on it, do all kinds of smart contract transactions, and then the people that own it are actually earning interest off of owning it. So it's an interest, yield-bearing asset. So that is a completely different animal. And yet, in the public's mind, they're all sort of thrown into the same basket, even though they're vastly different products. So, And we got here, I like to remind everybody every show, we got here through the cyber prophecies, jumping down the wormhole of the webbot reports combined with premier remote viewing groups that were pointing in the same direction. And that direction was in the direction that silver would become unobtainium over time, and that cryptocurrencies would eventually replace fiat currencies. Both of those are on the trajectory to become true. Silver is, I think it was up like 6% today. It's kind of staying between 70 and 90. It's trading sideways in a $20 range between like 70 and 90 after reaching a high of 120 not too many weeks ago. So I think what you're seeing is if you listen to, kind of one of the men in the high castle, as I like to put it, that's out there that uses an AI agent on YouTube. There's a guy named OG John AG. You kind of have to know what you're looking for to find this kind of information. But the guy is obviously an intelligence agent, and he uses AI generated content to hide his identity. But whoever that is has information that only certain types of people are given access to, and it all has to do with precious metal markets. And what can I say? He's dead on every time. And they tried to ban his channel recently. They tried to shut him down, all kinds of stuff going on that YouTube. So if you're into the real deal, how the world works, check that channel out. But I can fill you in and summarize what's going on. And the fact is there's a huge worldwide battle going on over the price of silver and obtaining silver. Silver's used in all of our advanced weaponry. That's really what it comes down to. We can't produce any advanced weaponry without it. And if you can't kill your enemy, you are dead in the water, as we like to put it in the Navy. That's really what it comes down to. And there's a very limited amount of silver. The ratio of gold to silver is way, way out of proportion with what its historical ratio is. Historically, silver ought to be around 10-1, somewhere around that. You get one piece of silver for every 10 pieces, or 10 pieces of silver for every one piece of gold. And right now they're pricing that ratio way out of range of that. That would put silver somewhere around, $350 to $500 an ounce. So that gives you an idea of the possibilities that the future might hold for that particular precious metal. Now they are talking about the U.S. government perhaps putting a price cap or a price floor on silver. That's just something we're going to have to see how that plays out. I have been more involved with just trading gold. It's as fluid as any cryptocurrency, and it's 5,000 years proven true. And, when you're looking for nice wave-like structures to surf, and I'm talking about the technical analysis of charts, then it produces really nice waves to surf. So it's really kind of drawn my attention away from the other ones. And until the world kind of figures out what's going on, you're kind of protected from geopolitical shock. You're protected from bad news coming out about any particular one company. You're protected from quantum computers actually cracking the cryptocurrency codes. You're protected from all kinds of stuff. And that is another concern. There is a quantum computing company out there called Envision. And they are producing the world's most advanced quantum computers. I just saw the CEO of the company recently talking, and by 2028, they're going to have a 128 qubit quantum computer. These are computers that use atoms. They're thousands and thousands of times more powerful than even our most powerful artificial intelligent computing apparatuses right now. And he's saying, yeah, at that point, it's quite possible that quantum computers could crack the cryptocurrency codes, and that's not that far away. Now, I would look for on the horizon at some point somebody coming up with a quantum-based currency that, well, that's would be quite impossible to break. Quantum-based is quantum-based. That's, you're talking about subatomic particles at that stage. So, but that's where the world is moving, and that's kind of where we have been dwelling here on, here on the Great Space Roller Coaster, as I like to call this journey on the Earth. And we have a lot of geopolitical uproar going on. You have the possible Iran taking place. I predicted a long time ago that a war with Iran would be inevitable, and it appears to be inevitable. We have the Ukraine-Russian war still going on. You have a possible future invasion of China into Taiwan. You have all kinds of turmoil going on economically just under the surface. So stock market's hitting all-time highs at the same time that, like, precious metals are hitting all-time highs. That's really, really weird. And yet they're not even talking about that right now. So it's very strange stuff that's happening. But the prophecies tell us that the cyber prophecies, the webbot reports, mixed with our Vedic astrology and the upswing of the Kali Yuga, all kind of point to a future in the not too distant future where we have what's called sci-fi emerges. Sci-fi world emerges, and that's a place where a lot of alien tech actually begins to make it to the surface, and begins to benefit humankind. There's all kinds of different predictions on how and why that actually takes place. The main prediction is that the money machine that was used to print all the money, that was used to pay off all the people that are necessary to keep alien technology a secret, is dried up. And so you're going to get non-stop leakages because of that. And eventually that leads to the point where actual technology breaks out and, begins to get utilized by humanity in some way. So, got to wet my whistle here. Feel like I'm about to lose my voice, but I've been kind of fighting a cold all week. So I apologize out there, guys. And so, silver becoming unobtainium, alien technology making its way out into the public. You have apparently Lara Trump recently saying on a news show that the president has a speech prepared and waiting, dealing with the alien presence on this planet. So if she's right about that, and why would she say that if it wasn't correct? Then you might get a real shocker in the not too distant future. People, kind of are in a place of comfort, not wanting, in a way, subconsciously, probably not wanting disclosure to occur, because when it occurs, you can't take it back. And it will change quite a bit. So probably they will mention the aliens in the ocean. That's something the Webbot has predicted. And it even predicts that there was some sort of meeting between certain world leaders and the leaders of this alien civilization that's down in the ocean. And you can examine all the evidence for that in my book, Alien Ocean, that's available on Amazon. It's actually selling quite a few copies right now, so somebody must be paying attention to that. But if Lara Trump is correct, and if that recent documentary Age of Disclosure by Dan Farah is correct in its assessment, and, there's been some detractors to it, but overall, if Farah is correct in his assessment that this whole thing's about to break wide open, then maybe Trump will come out with a big speech talking about it, and that will alter really the future of humanity as a whole. I can't imagine another president more grandiose, if you will, to come out and say, guess what, guys, we are not alone. I could see him doing that. So, and what other updates do we have this week? I'm kind of taking a look at my notes here. Well, that was probably the biggest one. They've been talking about Barack Obama saying aliens are real, but they didn't show them to me, so it just must be a big conspiracy, I guess. I guess it's a guy that's just totally clueless about the alien reality because they don't show every president. It's a need-to-know basis. It's the most heavily guarded secret that America has ever possessed. And so, digging it up through that many layers of security is quite a task. And we're told now from researchers like Corbell and Georgia Knapp, etc., that the last traceable, major controlling head of all of this was Dick Cheney. After that, it kind of goes dark. It's almost like after Dick Cheney, control went basically to the intelligence community as a whole. There are certain elements in the intelligence community, and that's kind of where we're at today. It's a certainty, I think, because of Marco Rubio and his interest in the topic, that Trump has been filled in on some of the finer details of what's taken place and how there's a legacy program, etc. If all of that's true, then I would say it's only just a matter of time. I mean, let's face it, the Trump administration has 3 whole more years. So, yeah, that kind of disclosure could really possibly take place during that tenure. It's quite possible. And as we're about to go into our break, I'm going to check out live prices right now. Silver's at $76.88, far from unobtainium, but this is a place where if I hadn't already accumulated all of my silver from many, many years ago, then I would be accumulating some here probably. And, gold's down slightly, and that's a good thing for me, because I'm actually going in that direction with my current trade. So Ethereum, Solana, Bitcoin, and XRP are all just slightly up, and they appear that they're going to keep grinding downward. Really, the problem with cryptocurrency right now is a catalyst. There's a lot of good news for cryptocurrencies out there in the world, but none of it seems to ever affect the price, except for the slow sort of grinding down that's been going on really since the October 10th historical deleveraging event that took place. And So we're kind of in that stage. We're in a stage where it's a risk kind of off on the cryptocurrencies and a risk on precious metals. And when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about interdimensional cryptozoology, where that might put us. And we're going to explore the dark theory that made President Jimmy Carter cry. We'll be back right after this.
Okay, we're on radio break. Great stuff, Jack.
Cool.
We just had a pressure change here, and all of my sinuses just a little bit ago just kind of crashed on me. I'm like, oh yeah. I'm like, that's gonna feel good.
Yeah, I got runny nose, a little cough, and sneezing a little bit. I'm just like, damn.
We're in a season here where you don't know if today is going to be warm or cold, hot, or, have a frost outside.
Right. Yeah.
Mostly,
we've had a kind of...
It mostly depends on how the wind blows.
Right. Right. Now, we've had a couple of, for us, February in South Dakota, we've had a couple of days where it hit 60. That's unheard of here. So. Oh,
man. I don't know. Did you hear any of the new stuff that I made for you, music-wise?
Yes. Yeah. I love it all.
About you broadcasting from the silo.
Yes.
Like that one came out really great. I'm like, oh yeah.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, it did. Are you gonna start adding
the dog man sniffing around, like Bigfoot?
Yes.
And was it Mothman attacking towns? Like, but you're broadcasting live from the silo.
That's right. You can't get to me down in the silo.
Yeah. I'll have to start go back and edit that so that your security crew is included. Don't worry, Jack's fine. The security crew's here.
Yeah, put Daisy in the
Sundance.
That'd be great.
Yeah. Yeah, Roger's in chat too. He's been doing some taking some of the ones that I've done and making mixes out of them and just doing like a different version of it too on top of it. Some of them are really, really good. It's like, yeah. Yep.
Cool.
You'll get to hear it if you listen. You'll get to hear it randomly when I have the music stream up, which I do when we're not live like we are tonight.
What program are you using for that? Like, how do you make a...
There's like 2 or 3 that I use, just like I use like 3 or 4 different ones for the AI art.
Nice.
Yeah. Roger likes to do his more sounding like Dr. Demento. Yeah.
That's great.
I've, I think a lot of mine have like that ska sound to it. Roger don't like that. It's like, I don't like that ska stuff. He'd rather hear that synth 80s wave stuff. And I'm not big into that, but, hey. But, it's fun, and we have over 600 plus songs that rotate in there. Yeah, okay. Roger likes disco more than ska. Okay. He's in there whining at me in the chat over in Kick. Yeah.
Is he?
Yeah. He's, one night, I think he and I kicked out like 20 or 30 songs, different versions of things. Last night I made a bunch about immigration in school. What they don't teach kids in school and what they should. get back to, the basics. We're under 30 seconds, so you're going to get a countdown here pretty quick, Jack. Yeah. All right, and here it is. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you were back live and on the radio side right now.
Welcome back, everybody, to Paranormal Intelligence Agency Radio Live. I'm your host, Jack Carey, your tour guide to the Twilight Zone, and tonight we are exploring an interesting rabbit hole known as the Dark Theory. So it has an ominous name for a reason, and let's see here. Old Cliff over at the Webbot sent out an interesting, the Dark Hypothesis, I guess, is more the actual name, not the Dark Theory, the Dark Hypothesis. So this is what was rumored to have made President Carter cry. And he warns me, do not read this. You have been warned. Typical Cliff. So, but we're going to read it. That's what we do on this show. It's called the Dark Hypothesis for a reason. Consider that all the information you have been told about humans in our history is a lie, that even the lies told about it are built upon a greater lie, that it is all lies all the way down. We know this to be true. There is no rational explanation for officialdom viewing of anything, especially human history and origins. This extends to all the religions. We know this is true because we have evidence in front of our eyes that there have been previous civilizations here on Earth that were far more advanced than we are even now. We can't replicate so much of the technology of the past, the granite statuary, the melted rocks, and even out into the megalithic structures which humans could not have built without very advanced technology, which we do not have even today. We know that our history, even recent history, is a lie prepared for us. We were even still destroying the grand global civilization that was Tartaria in World War II. That's what the firebombing of the city of Dresden was about. The destruction of the last completely Tartarian city in Germany. More lies, more cover-ups. It's all lies, all the way down. There were no cavemen. There is no human evolution on Earth. In fact, no animal has, quote, naturally evolved. It's all a lie. Who built the global pyramid network of which Giza is but a single node? It was surely not Jews enslaved to skirt-wearing kings of Egypt who constructed a vast global network of giant pyramids. Who built all the structures on the bottoms of the ocean? Who built the structures easily visible on the moon with a 10-inch telescope? Humans are an engineered species. Well, this is part of the Dark Hypothesis. It is only the base of it. Why were there orphan trains in the USA and across Europe? Where were all the birthing hospitals and the millions of mothers producing those children? Why do ancient ruins have more habitation available then than now? There have been at least 6 ancient civilizations on this planet that precede modern humans. These are all civilizations that go back further than perhaps 100,000 years or more. The Dark Hypothesis is that none of these civilizations arose or died naturally. The dark hypothesis is that humans, all humans, are the descendants of laboratory-created progenitors. In other words, all humans are the children of clones. We have proof in our DNA that we are engineered. The dark hypothesis explains it. The dark hypothesis explains all religions and why they are deliberately lied about their origin stories and their history. The dark hypothesis explains all the gods in humanity's past. The hypothesis states that each civilization was created by the offspring of clones, fostered and allowed to rise and flourish. Then, upon reaching conditions which are not known to us, each of these civilizations was then destroyed, in that the humanity was killed, while their objects were allowed to remain. This accounts for the cycles of destruction that we observe in the long-buried past. These cycles exist, but are not natural. Yes, there are many details left out of this discussion, such as that many of the humans would have been abducted prior to the engineered cataclysms of which we find so much evidence that we were used to destroy their civilization. There was a need for a small number of humans from each civilization to act as seeds for the narrative to be soon presented. Then another batch of lab-created humans were put on Earth. They had the benefit of the abducted humans acting as guides. Presumably, the minds of the abducted humans were controlled to support the desired narrative. For whatever goal or purpose, humans are placed here. The dark hypothesis is that we are lab rats in a designed experiment, and that we are number 7 in this current series. This explains why our history is replete with examples of modern humans in a state of primitive horse and cart technology among the ruins of buildings we could not, and even now cannot, construct. That's why we stand in awe of the ancients and what our science and officialdom claims to have been done with hammer and chisel. These previous 6 civilizations still have remnants that can be seen. All of the out-of-place artifacts across thousands of years are explained by the dark hypothesis. All of the history glitches and errors, such as being investigated by Fomenko and others, are explained by the dark hypothesis. The dark hypothesis also explains all the UFOs and such other paranormal experiences that humans may have. They are in some way mostly unknown to us, the result of the actions of the agency, quote, intelligence, that is conducting this experiment in which humanity is the subject. The dark hypothesis explains all of this and more. It is kept locked in a vault in the Pentagon, apparently taken out on occasion to frighten presidents into compliance with whatever power is actually in charge of this layer of this experiment in which we all live. The dark hypothesis explains 3-Eye Atlas. It explains stuff on other planets such as Mars. The dark hypothesis provides far more questions with each layer of explanation. The dark hypothesis should keep the humans busy for some extended period of time. And that is the end of Cliff High's letter. Very, very interesting. Well, it is rumored to have made President Jimmy Carter cry. I could see that. I can see Carter crying about that. So the idea is that, we're somehow forever locked away in this experiment of a non-human intelligence, and that we're basically lab rats on the Earth, and that this experiment has gone on at least 7 times. And each time, apparently, humans are like, well, they're harvested, if you will, the planet before the destruction occurs, and then utilized in some fashion. And that sort of ties in with my overall theory about the idea that the Earth is actually seeded by a Type 3 civilization on the Kardashev scale. This is the idea that really every galaxy, no matter the galaxy, if the math is to be believed by Enrico Fermi and Frank Drake and all of those guys, then really at least one life form should have evolved to be really technologically advanced and would have survived, not destroying itself, and at the same time would have been around long enough and advanced enough that it could have and would have colonized the entire galaxy. That same law of probability holds true in every galaxy, and so what that means is that we're more than likely living in a galaxy that is actually ultimately under the umbrella control of what we call a Type 3 civilization. Like all of the UFOs that end up coming to this planet are probably part of a long-running program from this Type 3 civilization to manage and maintain planets that it seeds. And it's seeded more than the Earth. It probably has seeded hundreds, even thousands and hundreds of thousands of planets. And it could be that they're all humanish in form because the progenitors are humanish in form. Could it be that's why the so-called Nordic aliens that show up in our literature time and time again and appear to be kind of in control of everything? Maybe that's what we're seeing a glimpse of, right? Maybe those are agents of the Type 3 civilization. And humans look like they do because they seeded us. And the little gray robots, the biological robots, and even their mantis overlord beings, maybe they're all constructs of the Type 3 civilization. More and more evidence comes in, pieces of the puzzle kind of pop up here and there. We're beginning to see that is beginning to form a higher and higher probability of being the case. Is it the ultimate truth? I don't know. But we can only add up the numbers as they come along, and so far the math is beginning to make at least a little bit of sense. And that leads us into what I was discussing with the idea that really cryptozoology needs to be reclassified into 2 forms. You're going to have regular cryptozoology, in which case you can have the fun kind of experience where you go out and just look for formerly extinct species or something that's kind of newly evolving into a species, or something that got overlooked as a species. That's kind of the 3 circles of real cryptozoology as an earth-based science. And then you have things like Bigfoot and Dogman and prehistoric animal sightings and dire wolves and you name it, werewolves. It runs the gamut, shapeshifters, skinwalkers, all of that would fall into a new category. And I propose the name exozoology. I think that probably is an easy name for people to grasp, and it's the idea that we're studying animals that appear to originate from another either civilization and or dimension. So, what do we do from here? Really, as cryptozoologists, as investigators, I don't know. I might have to busy myself with writing the very first book on exozoology. And what can, the characteristics of these creatures that appear to be interdimensional in nature, what can that tell us about the dimension that they come from? And all of that interesting information. So that could lead to really kind of the founding of a new type of science. It's clear that, like, when you look at the research coming out of Skinwalker Ranch and the Pentagon's deeper programs dealing with UFOs, that they're having a lot of so-called exozoology activity. Not necessarily cryptozoology activity, but exozoology activity. And so why not form that as its own science and sort of subdivide that and subdivide, Earth-based cryptozoology out of that and leave that as its own discipline and its own science, because that's a much needed thing. And there's not any real, right now, the scientific community doesn't ascribe a lot of real credibility to cryptozoology. If we could divide that out into Earth-based and then exo-based, whether that be interdimensional and or Type 3 civilization activity, it could help. So it might help us kind of think about exozoology in a whole new way. There's the paranormal aspect of Bigfoot, the accounts of abductees seeing Bigfoot in the presence of aliens. You have the DNA that shows it to be a chimeric construct. You have orbs and weird balls of light always being reported around them. Jonathan Keel noted that in at least 20% of all highly credible Bigfoot sightings, there was also a UFO reported at the scene. That's a dead giveaway, right? Should be. And what do we have with the Dogman phenomenon? An identical series of points to be made on any PowerPoint presentation. You could go down and they're like identical. So, and that's kind of my new idea. I think that's going to present a whole new idea of rabbit holes. Like, it was told to David Paulides of Missing 411 fame by Dr. John Brandenburg, who works for NASA, that the government had employed him to run a group of scientists that were studying interdimensional doorways. And if they're studying interdimensional doorways, it means they're studying the creatures that are coming through those doorways, and that would classify itself as exozoology. And you can see where these highly credentialed mainstream scientists are sort of preparing the way for that. So, that leads us into kind of the case of on Skinwalker Ranch, where, like, last year in one of the dry gulches there on the ranch, they discovered a flesh and bone carcass, and they retrieved the carcass. It was a wolf-like creature, but not a wolf that they could ascertain. Luckily, Skinwalker Ranch has all kinds of funding, and they're able to pay scientists, and so they have a paid world-class field biologist on the ranch at all times. This field biologist was able to examine the carcass up close right away. Apparently, so had some form or access to a real dire wolf carcass that had been discovered in the ice and was perfectly preserved, and they were able to put those two bodies together and make a spot-on identification. In other words, the wolf-like creature discovered at Skinwalker Ranch is a dire wolf. And that dire wolf appears to have come out of another dimensional plane. That would be exozoology, right? So it's almost like the past also exists interdimensionally alongside this plane, and sometimes these animals can wander back out of it through a doorway somehow. How weird is that? That would explain all of the very strange pterodactyl sightings that we continually get or used to get all the time in Crypto Four Corners when we were down in the American Southwest. So you don't get them so much up here, but one of the best pterodactyl sightings ever reported and video that actually recorded, which I believe to be authentic video to this day. It was taken way prior to any kind of AI type of generated stuff, and that happened at Flathead Lake in Montana. And it's clearly a living creature of some kind. So how do we begin to explain that, right? Did that fly out of an interdimensional hole somewhere? Well, it's possible. If a dire wolf can wander through a hole on Skinwalker Ranch, then who's to say a pterodactyl can't fly through another interdimensional hole somewhere in North America and zoom around for a while before disappearing back into the past, So, where does that leave us? Well, it kind of leaves us in a state where we need to begin to entertain the possibility that a lot of what we encounter, is a good word, in the wilderness areas as cryptozoologists could actually be interdimensional animal activity, exozoology activity. And that should bring on a whole new sort of, caution, if not fear. We need to be very cautious about dealing with any life forms that may have originated on another dimension. And it could be that what we're seeing in these wilderness areas that's actually responsible for all the missing 411 cases is a type of interdimensional animal predator. Something that would take an exozoologist to be able to identify. And often when I think about what those people might be encountering out in the woods, I often think of the ocean animal, the mimic octopus. And I like to call this theoretical, interdimensional, cryptid predator taking humans out of the woods a mimic. That's my name for it, the mimic. And what if you had an animal that was interdimensional like that, that was very much like a mimic octopus that could take any form, any shape, look like a tree, look like a bush, look like another animal? What if it could mimic other life forms in such a way that it was able to take humans? It's just an idea. It's just a theory. But Brandenburg made it clear to Paulides that this was an extremely high-level, high-budget, deep black program going on at the Pentagon where they're studying interdimensional doorways. And I mentioned it as far back as 20 years ago in my book, Paranormal Planet, that at each one of the interdimensional doorways that I mentioned in my book, which are 12 different ones, the government had placed a military presence at that doorway. It was almost as if somebody in the government had identified the doorways, and now they wanted to place a guard at the entrance to the doorways. And that's exactly what they did. And now We have testimony coming out of Paulides that Brandenburg told him those things, and all of the math begins to add up. So, such is the way of the rabbit holes on the Paranormal Intelligence Agency radio show. And next week, we're going to be examining some more crazy theories. We got some more WebBot reports, and I expect there's going to be, well, some explosiveness take place in the cryptocurrency markets pretty soon. But stay tuned for some really good programming next, and join me next week, Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Central, and I will see you on the radio.